what so proudly we hailed, and the twilight lies gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fights. Oh, the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets rattling, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, St. Peter's that star-spangled banner, yeah, wave o'er the land under the frame, you're the home of the brave.
Don't be afraid, this is a low fat, and you are listening to HonestAnswerRadio.com. Now, where is the egg roll you guys promised me?
The views and opinions expressed on the Honest Answer Radio show are the opinions of Honest Answer Media and no one else. If you're hearing a syndicated broadcast of this show, don't hold it against the broadcaster. Rather, congratulate them on their openness, tolerance, and respect for the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America. Thank you very much.
Trust I seek and I find in you. Every day for us something new. Open mind for a different view, and nothing else matters. Never care for what they say. Never care for games they play. Never care for what they do. Never care for what they know. And I know, yeah.
And welcome one more time to Honest Answer Radio here on HonestAnswerRadio.com, where we're kicking the mainstream media in the teeth only every chance we get. If this is your first time listening to us, well, I'm going to be the Marty half of your dynamic hosting duo this fine Tuesday evening.
And on the Tuesday evening edition of Honest Answer Radio, I will be the Casey half. And man, what a weekend.
Yeah, it was a doozy.
Can you say that this stuff about Bo Bergdahl, well, it ain't a drip.
No, it's more like a sploosh. It's been a non-stop waterfall of Bergdahl, Taliban,
Immigration.
And then, like yesterday, Hillary.
Patooey.
You know, yeah, well, you do kind of want to spit when that comes out of your mouth.
Yeah, I'm trying to swallow it all back now.
And, you know, us being the good citizen journalists that we are, we would be remiss if we didn't have our own little Bergdahl immigration Hillary recap.
Well, I know.
Because there might be some people, believe it or not, man, there may have been some people that didn't hear any of that over the weekend.
Well, I don't think you had time to see it because we were so busy right before the show started. But I put out a little teaser on Facebook. And what I promised people that we were going to do is pretty much what you and I were talking about right before the show. I promised them that we would tie up, that you already got the audio, already sequencized.
That I do. That I do.
Synchronated.
Ooh, good word.
To show people how the exchange of Bo Bergdahl for 5 hardened Taliban warlords
Right.
ties into this immigration mess that we have found ourselves in,
Uh-huh.
and how all of that is tied into the Hillary versus Paul Ryan ticket in 2016. Now, you know, there's going to be people out there that are going, what?
Well, I mean, look, you got, those are 3 seemingly separate issues. You know, the Bergdahl Taliban swap, that's huge. And, you know, we are leaving one thing out of all 3 of those.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the VA scandal. And before we really jump into things, I do have a little story that I will relay that will show how all 3 of these things have something to do with that, in that we're not talking about the VA.
Exactly, because we're talking about Hillary. We're talking about a flood of immigrants. We're talking about Bo Bergdahl. And in the meantime, 57,000 veterans are waiting to see the doctor.
Mm-hmm. Now, I don't have audio for this, but just so you guys know that we haven't forgotten the veterans.
And just let's just call out our home state.
Well, that's
also
exactly where I'm going.
Yeah.
I posted an article, or I shared an article on Facebook, where in our own state of Alabama, we are not immune to this VA scandal. It was somebody blew the whistle on members of our own Veterans Administration Hospital. I think it was the one in Birmingham, if I'm not...
No. Montgomery. And Tuskegee.
Well, okay, all right, yeah. At any rate, some of the employees there noticed that, or they caught some of their fellow employees, you know, doing a little bit of this jostling, trying to cover up the wait times for some of these veterans. And they blew the whistle on them. And they are now, they didn't just get fired, Casey. They're being prosecuted.
And we hope that it's not a Barney Fife, citizens arrest, you know, none of that prosecution.
I don't think it will be.
I'm thinking that here in Alabama that we do actually have a prosecutor who will move on this.
Well,
I hope so.
If this, I'll say this. Any other time, it very well could have been swept under the rug and you know, might have just been like this little brief news blip. Oh, by the way, this happened. But in light of recent events, and you know, this not just being a localized Alabama VA issue, where this has been going on, you know, apparently all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
I really think that the prosecutors in this case are going to want to, if I may use a cliche, make an example out of these people.
Pour encourager les autres, as the French would say, to encourage the others.
I don't think they'd say it like that, though.
Well, that's because they don't know how to pronounce their own darn language.
Okay.
You know.
But, you know, I really think that that these prosecutors are going to really, try to prosecute these people to the fullest extent of the law, if for no other reason than to say, hey, America, we down here in Alabama, let us show you how you prosecute somebody that messes with our veterans.
The only problem with that is we have to depend on the federal judges. And let's face it, Marty, we don't know them.
No, we don't. No, we don't. But
and they may not even have graduated from the University of Alabama.
I do know that them being judges, that they're also politicians. And if they want to, if they want any good light shown on them at all,
well, no, in the federal system, they're appointed.
That's right.
No,
that's right.
So, which doesn't necessarily absolve them or make them above politics.
But if they
as
at
we
least
have
want
seen
a decent name in the papers, they're going to do the right thing by this. But at any rate, just wanted you guys to know that even though we are talking about 3 separate issues tonight that all tie into one,
all of it is to cover up the Obama's administration's terrible job of handling the VA.
And with 2.5 years to go on his sentence, in his presidency, we were talking about the other night. The man's got a great chance. He could be the savior that he's promised everybody he would, that he was going to be, and all he would have to do is fix this one thing. But no, he can't do that because he's a busy man. After all, he's got this Bo Bergdahl thing that he's got to fix,
which he managed to tell. I saw one story today where he told 90 other people were in the know about the Bo Bergdahl in the administration. But he couldn't tell nobody in Congress.
No, because, look, the way that they're making this sound is that this was a very sensitive issue, and they couldn't run the risk of there being any leaks. Now, we know that nobody in the Obama camp would ever leak anything. It's them pesky old congressmen and senators that do all the leaking, after all.
Right.
So, they could contain it within 80 or 90 people there in the Obama camp. We can't be letting any of the congressmen and senators know. And also, it's come to light now that, of course, the president's got to keep his hands clean on this. Even though this was his deal, even though this was his baby, because after all, he's the one that walked the mom and dad out on the rose garden. It ain't his fault it went crazy and that it was a bad deal. That's Chuck Hagel's fault, man.
Chuck Hagel done it.
Because he's a Republican, remember? He's the Republican that got recruited in there by the Obama administration. Hey, we'll get a Republican to be our SecDef, and that way we can show just how nonpartisan we really are.
And when we need a scapegoat, we've got one.
We've got a handy Republican right there. So tomorrow, Chuck Hagel is going to be in the hot seat there before the Armed Services Committee. And I wouldn't want to be him. I don't mind telling you, because he's going to have some pretty nasty questions he's going to have to answer. Like starting with, why y'all didn't tell us?
Yeah, see, that's probably going to be question number one.
Not even any of the Intelligence Committee members? Couldn't even trust them, and they're, in the know about a whole lot of classified stuff that the rest of the country can't be in on.
And anyway, one thing we need to do is we need to sort of go ahead and trash this narrative that this was even a prisoner swap anyway. No, because it really wasn't.
No, because they were all the Taliban guys were gone 5 days before Bergdahl was even I don't even want to call it rescued.
So one of the questions that Hagel's going to be asked is how come you're emptying Guantanamo without bringing this up in front of people like you're supposed to?
that pesky National Detention Authorization Act. You remember that? That's that thing that says Congress has to be notified 30 days prior to any of these guys being released. Remember that part?
So, and since they released them 5 days before they turned Bergdahl loose, here's another question that I'm just blue skying here.
Spitballing, if you will.
It was the Haqqani, I don't know if you call them a tribe or sect, whatever, that was actually holding on to Bo Bergdahl, theoretically. They're not necessarily, quoted in big scare quotes, the Taliban.
Right.
What'd they get out of the deal?
Yeah, that's like.
What did they get to release Bo Bergdahl?
That's the $64 million question. It was rumored that they were getting $1 million apiece. $1 million per warlord.
I haven't seen. I've seen some stories out there about it, but I haven't yet seen like the story that ties it up in a nice bow. But you see what I did there?
Yeah,
but
that was pretty good.
But they got something out of it.
But nobody really knows what yet.
So
I'm pretty sure it's going to come out. You know what's weird though that came out over the weekend? Now, I want you to put yourself in Bo Bergdahl's shoes for a minute. All right? Mm-hmm. You have been, held captive, we'll say. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say he was held captive by the Haqqanis. And they've done all sorts of mean, nasty, terrible things to you. Got veins in their teeth and everything.
Made you sit on the Group W bench and all that.
Yep. Wouldn't even let you sing Alice's Restaurant. All these, and you they done gotten your head so bad you can't even speak English good no more.
Right.
When you was rescued, what would be the first thing you'd want to do?
I'd want to call home.
Mm-hmm. Wouldn't you want to talk to somebody?
Because, see, if it was me, the first thing I'd think about was, gosh, my family is worried sick.
Yeah. You'd think, and seeing as how your dad, if you're Bo Bergdahl, your dad has been all over the place, giving all these speeches and making all these talks. Heck, he's even been in the loop on some pretty high-level intelligence briefings during all of this. Some would even say instrumental in obtaining your release. Wouldn't you at least want to say thanks, Dad?
I would, if it was me, yeah, I'd want to let my mama know I was all right.
Well, that brings us to our first audio clip. Now, this is coming from over on the Fox News channel, Megyn Kelly's show, The Kelly File. She is speaking with Mark Luttrell. We played some audio of his last week when he was speaking with Glenn Beck.
A man who'd also been held by the Taliban.
Not for 5 years. He'd only been held 5 days. But he has a pretty interesting take on this, seeing as how, in a manner of speaking, he sort of has been in Bergdahl's shoes. So listen to this. If I can, I always have it to the end of the clip when I'm supposed to have it at the beginning. But now, listen to this.
I want to ask you this. He reportedly now he doesn't want them to call him sergeant. He wants to go by private, which was the rank when he got taken. And he also is not speaking to his parents. It's been 9 days since he's been back. He will not speak to his parents. The head of the medical facility where he is came out and said that's extremely rare. It's, in fact, unprecedented in his experience. All POWs who have come back through there, that's the first thing that they wanted to do is speak to their family. How does it strike you?
Well, that's a little weird, I think. The first thing, after I went through all my debriefing, and immediately when I got back, the first person I wanted to talk to was my mama. I mean, absolutely, and my brother and my dad, but just to get back to that family unit. Matter of fact, when I was there, my doctors came in and asked me, they're like, hey, what can we do to make you better? What can we do to help you out? And I'm like, send me home. I want to go home to my family. I want to get out of here. I don't want to be in the hospital anymore. I definitely want to be around people that I know, especially my family.
Now, I'm with Luttrell on that. I like how he said, though, I want to talk to my mama.
Well, because his mama was worried sick. He's a good son. He wants to let his mama know he's all right.
But not so with Bergdahl. There's
What
a lot
is
of
up?
weird things going on with
That
this
boy
guy.
is just weird.
I mean, either this is a seriously, just a serious case of Stockholm Syndrome, where he not only identifies with his captors, but it's like he misses them more than he did his real family. There's something going on here, man. I mean, there's something strangely amiss about this guy. I've heard people saying, making the comparison to, oh gosh, what was
Patty
that broad
Hearst.
from
Patty
the 60s?
Hearst.
Yeah, Patty Hearst. Now, I don't know if that was a case of Stockholm Syndrome or not, because, you know, she really did kind of want to stick it to the man.
But they had messed up. That girl had been repeatedly raped over and over again, and I mean,
Well, at first.
so her head was completely messed up. I mean,
And they had her convinced that her daddy didn't want to pay any kind of ransom or anything for her, you know. But, I don't know about this Bergdahl guy. I really don't. Because you see the video of these guys patting him on the back. You know, it looked like he was kind of tearing up a little bit. And you could see him patting him, like almost loving on him, saying, it's okay, man. It's going to be all right. And these are the Haqqanis.
theoretically.
Theoretically, yeah. You know, this Bergdahl thing ain't going to go away. And, you know, if he's not just crazy enough by himself, you got to keep going back to this whole not briefing Congress. Because they really wanted us to be so happy that this soldier comes home. This soldier that, well, he's a weird bird, man, all by himself. But seeing as how it really don't look like it was a prisoner swap after all, more like an Indian of Guantanamo Bay.
But you know what has remained constant, and I think this will tie into another clip that you've got lined up there. One thing that you can always, you can't count on the Obama administration to take care of veterans.
No.
Okay, you can't count on the Obama administration to secure our embassies or consulates.
No.
No, okay, you can't count on the Obama administration not to send guns into Mexico. You can't count on the Obama administration to keep an eye on the IRS and keep them from harassing law-abiding citizens.
Right.
But one thing you can count on them for:
Lie
and just completely rewrite history on national TV.
Oh, yeah. Now, and it don't matter which one of them it is.
No, man, it's just like a mix and match, like a Mr. Potato Head thing.
Susan Rice better watch out.
That's
because
right.
she's got some serious competition in this
That's right.
Marie Harf broad. Mm-hmm. And what is just really knocking my boots, man, is that some of the hard questions are actually coming from some of the water carriers for the Obama camp. I mean, now, this clip I'm about to play, not only do we get to hear Marie Harf lie her blonde little head off, but you know who she's lying to?
I know you're talking about Andrea Mitchell.
Andrea Mitchell.
And the thing is, I'm glad you're playing this clip, because right before the show started, I saw this little estimate of the networks and everything. What's the most trusted versus least trusted? Fox being the most trusted network, and MSNBC is down there at the bottom. People trust Jon Stewart more than they do.
They trust a news satire show
Yeah.
more than the MSNBC NBC network.
Yeah. And
Wow.
so I'm glad you're playing this clip, because when people don't trust a source, they usually aren't viewing the source. So odds are nobody else has seen it.
And, you know, I find it very telling. Listen for this in the clip. You'll actually hear Andrea Mitchell say the words, fellow Democrat.
Yeah,
And
I caught that too.
Fellow Democrat, she's the other fellow in this Senate. So keep your ears open, but just listen to this, man. This is really wild stuff here.
Questions that have been asked are not necessarily whether to bring a prisoner back, but the price paid and the lack of notification. First of all, to the lack of notification, Dianne Feinstein, hardly a critic of the administration, a fellow Democrat, has been extremely critical and concerned about this, as well as Mike Rogers, her Republican counterpart. There seems to be bipartisan concern on the Hill that there was no reason not to notify either the Big Eight, the committee chairs. What does the administration say to that?
Well, I think 2 points. The first is that we were operating on a very short time frame here, that we absolutely assessed, that our military commanders assessed, that if any detail about this swap became public before it actually happened, that Sergeant Bergdahl's life would be in increasing danger. He was being held, as we've now seen, by a group that's ruthless, that we did not know what they would be capable of doing. And
I got to stop this for just a minute.
Yeah,
we'll
I'm
take
glad
this
you did.
point by point. This is a 4-minute clip, so we'll have to take this one point by point. First of all, you hear her say that time was of the essence here, because why?
Oh, this time she's saying it's because if word leaked out, Bo Bergdahl's life would be in danger.
But also because of Bergdahl's health, right?
Well, see, that was the other narrative.
But over the weekend, his doctor's report came out.
Said,
You know what it said?
No, he's good.
He wasn't even malnourished. They said, his gums had receded a little bit because he's lost a little bit of weight. And his skin was a tad bit dehydrated, but it's hot in the desert.
And
man.
that could be the altitude.
Yeah.
You
But
know.
he didn't even show signs of malnourishment.
So they're switching the narrative over now to if word had leaked out, his life would have been in danger from those Haqqanis.
Those Haqqani. Okay, I'll let it keep playing. Just had to point that out.
we're very concerned about his life, both for that reason and because of his health.
Let me question you about that, because the bin Laden raid was completely briefed for 11 months. And in fact, in the 48 hours prior to the raid, was briefed to the top leaders.
It was not, actually. It was not. The bin Laden raid was the only other time we haven't briefed Congress actually on an operation.
In fact, that was claimed initially by Tom Donilon, in fact, in a conference with me a week ago. But since that time, Mike Morrell says that it was completely briefed. He was acting CIA director. And in contemporaneous time frame, I talked to a Senate chairman the day after the raid, and he said, I'm so sorry I couldn't talk to you that Sunday we were together. It was briefed.
Well, I was CIA spokesperson then, if you remember.
I know.
And I think it's the same, what we're talking about with Bergdahl is in somewhat the same as bin Laden. The architecture of what this might look like, and including in the Bergdahl case, was briefed to Congress, including who the five would be, including what the swap would look like. That was fully briefed to Congress. But the specific operational details about when the swap would happen for operational security, as was the case with bin Laden, were not briefed prior to the operation because we believed that was a necessity.
I don't want to argue the point because we haven't discussed this before, and I don't want to put.
No,
but
it's my job to be put on the spot.
On Sunday afternoon of bin Laden, before it was announced, I was standing next to a Senate chair who said, I have to go, and later said to me, the next day said to me, I'm so sorry, but I was being told about the raid, and I didn't want to risk standing next to reporters like yourself. It was briefed to Senate leaders. I know this from Dianne Feinstein. I know this from Mike Rogers.
Well, we can recreate history on bin Laden, but when it comes to Bergdahl, which is, I think, what's most important today,
What did she just say? Can I back that up just a hair so I can hear that again?
Bergdahl, which is, I think, what's most important today, the architecture of this entire swap had been briefed, and quite.
Wait a minute, I missed it.
I know this from Mike Rogers.
Well, we can recreate history on Bin Laden, but when it comes to
We can recreate history when it comes to Bin Laden. Did she really just say that?
Yeah, she's trying to say that Andrea Mitchell is rewrite. She's accusing Andrea Mitchell of rewriting history, but the thing is, that means that the rest of us, we don't remember what we think we remember. Remember we talked about gaslighting and how Bill Whittle's got that great video on gaslighting, you know, about how good the Obama administration is at it. They said, no, you didn't hear that. You don't remember it. You have false memories of the past. Just take our word for it.
You know this Marie Harf, with Susan Rice, you could tell that she had her talking points memorized, right? Mm-hmm. And because she kept repeating them
over and over
again, like almost verbatim, right?
Mm-hmm.
Marie Harf is so good at this that she's doing this off the cuff.
Yeah.
I mean, she doesn't need her talking points written on her hand or anything like that.
No, man, she can lie at the drop of a hat.
When I watched this interview the first time, my initial reaction is for my blood to boil, because this little broad knows she's lying through her teeth.
Mm-hmm.
But she's giggling about it all throughout this, and oh, that's okay. It's my job to be put on the spot. That's right. It's your job to be put on the spot, and they hired you for it because you could lie better than anybody, sister.
Mm-hmm.
When all of this stuff comes to light, and these are proven to be the lies that they are, I guarantee you she will still stand firm and say, nope, that's not the truth at all. What I initially said was the truth. She reminds me of Baghdad Bob.
Oh, yeah. There are no tanks in Baghdad. There are no tanks, no American tanks in Iraq. We are pushing them back. We have pushed them completely back.
We have fought the infidels and won.
The victory is actually ours.
And you remember, Casey, when we started, we didn't, when the Iraqis started prosecuting some of those Ba'ath Party people, Baghdad Bob was amongst the first arrested and prosecuted. And all he was a mouthpiece. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
I sincerely hope with everything that I've got, with every fiber of my being, that the next administration we have an attorney general with enough integrity to drag every one of these people through court.
I don't think it's going to happen, and it's not necessarily going to have to do with a lack of testicular fortitude. Unfortunately, lying to the American people on TV isn't really a crime. I mean, lying itself, unless you're lying to Congress, and you notice...
Can they please drag this broad before Congress then? Somebody, if you're listening and you're in a position to hand out subpoenas for any of these committees, will you please subpoena this broad so she can lie to y'all?
So we can prosecute her later. It would be nice, but the way the Obama administration works, they'll delay and delay and delay and delay until it's too late, and they won't ever get her in front of Congress. I mean,
she makes me want to puke.
The lawlessness of that's another thing you can count on the Obama administration for.
Oh yeah, a complete disregard for the law.
To break the law whenever they feel like
it applies to everyone but them. It's just like this signing statement. This is how they're going to get around this not briefing Congress thing, because Obama's just going to say, "Look, didn't you read my signing statement?" when y'all handed me the NDAA, I signed off on it and everything. But remember, I put in there.
But I didn't like it.
This part right here, I don't think it's constitutional, which I find ironic that he would even be worried about whether or not anything's constitutional. It hadn't hindered his entire presidency. Anyway, we've got more. We've got more audio that we've got to get through. I've got another piece because Jay Carney, he's gone,
and now we have the replacement Jay Carney,
Josh Earnest, and man, when the president introduced him, he said, he is what his last name implies. He's so earnest. Nothing but the truth in this guy, Casey. What you see is what you get. Mm-hmm. So much integrity.
Just like Jay Carney.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, they could be clones when it comes to their ability to...
Well, you'll hear that clone at the end of this clip. Mm-hmm. This is Ed Henry.
Mm-hmm.
And he's tying up all this Bergdahl stuff. And he brings up a pretty good point here. Take it away, Ed.
Couple quick questions on Bergdahl. On Friday, the head of the VFW sent a letter to President Obama saying, now that you've secured the release of Sergeant Bergdahl, when are you going to secure the release of the Marine Sergeant who's in a Mexican prison? And specifically, the head of the VFW asked, what is the President, we've heard about Secretary Kerry and others, what is the President personally doing to get this Marine out of the Mexican prison?
Mm-hmm. Well, let me draw a distinction between the Marine that you're citing in the Mexican prison and Sergeant Bergdahl. Sergeant Bergdahl was being held by the Taliban, who was engaged in an armed conflict with the United States and coalition forces. And so what was conducted to free Sergeant Bergdahl was a prisoner exchange. And this is something that has been part of winding down armed conflicts for centuries. And as the President mentioned in his news conference in Europe, this is something that previous presidents, going all the way back to President Washington, have had to grapple with. That exchanging prisoners at the end of an armed conflict is a necessary part of ending wars, and that's something that this president's committed to. Now,
but back to the
So separately, I don't have a lot of information to provide you in terms of the current efforts underway.
But is the president pressing to get him back or not?
Well, certainly the president is concerned about all detainees or Americans who are being held against their will in other countries. And this is something that the president is certainly concerned about. But in terms of what specific efforts are underway, I'd refer you to the Department of Defense.
So he would refer, as far as this Marine, all right, former Marine, not current Marine, former Marine being held in a Mexican prison, he's referring him to the Department of Defense.
Which makes no sense to me. All right. The guy's not an actively serving Marine.
No.
The Department of Defense is going to say, what are you looking at me for?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, and that's the way it should be.
Why
didn't he refer him to the State Department?
Well, see, that's what I was going to say, because, as it so happens, John Kerry, not too long ago, was just right over there in Mexico.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he was, as a matter of fact.
And he, when asked about it over there, he just kind of brushed it aside. Well, of course, we're very interested. We don't want to leave any Marine behind.
Understand my nuance.
Yeah. Maybe that's why he didn't want to refer him to the State Department, because he knew that John Kerry could care less about this former Marine languishing away in a Mexican prison.
Who is apparently being treated worse than Bo Bergdahl was being treated in Afghanistan.
Yeah. But see, they're not really concerned with getting Americans out of Mexico so much as they are concerned about getting Mexicans out of Mexico and into America.
Or actually anybody from, say, Central America.
Yeah, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, any of those places will do. We can't be bothered with a decorated Marine who's in a Mexican prison because he couldn't get off the interstate.
His usefulness to this country is already done as a parent.
He's a veteran, for Pete's sake. What do they care about a veteran? I mean, my goodness.
I mean, what, you
The Obama administration cannot be bothered by some pesky veteran that, okay, so he served his country honorably. So he's got some medals. So he gave his blood, sweat, and tears for this country.
His daddy hasn't even grown a beard for him
That's
yet.
right. Do you see his daddy speaking Pashto? You know how hard it is to learn Pashto? You know how expensive Rosetta Stone is? I don't see this kid's parents buying Rosetta Stone. We can't be bothered with him. But now, we've got to understand the plight of these people who have come into this country illegally, who have no medical care, and they need the best medical care that this country can provide. They don't have any money, Casey. They're here illegally. How can they have money? We've got to give it to them.
Let's give them some little nasty cold burritos to eat.
We've got to take care of these people. My gosh, they're here illegally. We've got to care for them.
And how are we caring for them?
Well, let's see. If they're children, we're packing them up in a warehouse.
Giving them cold burritos.
That are apparently making them sick. But, hey, we're also providing them with recreational activities.
Yeah, we're going to give them a soccer ball.
Oh, yeah, yeah. But that's how we're caring for the children. Well, we're housing them, man. Heck, we've had to open up 3 more military bases to keep all these kids. We're running out of warehouse space. Please, American taxpayers, send your money so that we can build more warehouses to house these children here who are in this country illegally. You know, yesterday on the Drudge Report, there was before you get to the letters Drudge Report, there was 17 headlines about this humongous influx of illegal immigrants.
Now, the thing is,
country.
Most of these are kids.
Yeah.
And the majority of them, they're not even from Mexico. Now, Mexico's our partner. And John Kerry likes to nuance all this stuff about how Mexico is our partner and everything.
Oh, absolutely.
So this is what Mexico does.
They send them, we keep them.
Exactly. All these kids are coming, the majority of them are from Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras. Mm-hmm. Honduras, and they want to remind everybody, look, Honduras has the highest murder rate of any country on the planet right now. All right.
War-torn Honduras.
War-torn Honduras, yes. All right, so instead of Mexico saying, well, they're here, maybe we'd better feed these kids, they put them on buses and send them to the United States.
Hey, why not, man?
Okay, so
land of milk and honey.
This is our partner.
Yeah. Well, they're doing their part, Casey. They're sending them here. Our part is to care for them and house them and feed them and give them medical care and
education
income and an education. I mean, they did their part by sending them here. They're our partners, 50-50.
And I've heard the comparison made to the boat people in Vietnam. Even Britt Hume was making that, which is shocking to me. Look, there's a humongous difference. We were fighting a very unpopular war in Vietnam, and the South Vietnamese were being slaughtered by their government because they had, their families had fought on behalf of South Vietnam.
Right.
And they got on boats and they tried to, make it to the United States and all that. These kids that they're sending, we haven't been fighting any wars. I mean, unless there's something I don't know about. Do we have... are we fighting a war in Honduras right now, man?
No. We are sending guns to Mexico, though. To the cartels. Does that count? Because some of the cartels, they got business down in Honduras. Maybe that's how it ties in.
And Guatemala and El Salvador.
Well, look, man, look. you know how we've always said that there's three sides to everything, at least in this country. You've got the left, you got the right, and then you got the truth.
The truth.
Right? Okay. As it so happens, I've got 3 pieces of audio concerning this very topic. Now, I know that's hard to imagine, but I do.
But, you know, man, something about this whole thing stinks to high heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Its timing.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
its timing is sort of like, you know, because, you know, okay, the administration, the Obama administration, and I'm helping set up the clips, by the way. We've got the Obama administration who's dropped the ball on the VA.
Right.
So you got a scandal.
Right.
Aha. So we'll do a prisoner swap, and we'll make everybody forget about that. Well, now that prisoner swap is a huge scandal.
Which it's really not a prisoner swap at all.
Right. But, you know, that's neither here nor there. It's a scandal. Aha. So we've got to distract people really quick.
Hey, what if we get a bunch of illegals and we put them on buses and we, like, send them to Arizona, or we put them on a plane and send them to El Paso and say, or Nogales, and say, you're free.
Yeah.
What if we do that?
And
That'll get people's
and then
mind
people
off of
will
this
be,
stuff.
people aren't going to want to talk about the VA or Bo Bergdahl after that. They're
No,
going to be
because
talking
these are
about
children involved here.
It's for the kids.
Right. They'll be too concerned about caring for these poor, unfortunate children. They're children, Casey.
It's for the kids.
Well, look it. First, we're going to hear from the left. This first clip I've got is from MSNBC. And
Well, when you say left, you mean way left.
Way left. Even further left than MSNBC. It's the Alex Wagner Show, and she is talking to Cindy Carcama, who is a reporter for the L.A. Times. Just when you think you can't get further left than MSNBC,
you mentioned the L.A. Times.
I'll pull out the L.A. Times. And this is her take on things.
Cindy, let me ask you, there are a lot of competing narratives about why these kids are coming in such huge numbers and seemingly all of a sudden. One group of folks say it's because of a rapidly deteriorating situation in Central America, and others say it's because of the promise of, or the hope of citizenship or residence in the United States. From your reporting, what do you gather?
Well, actually, the White House just held a press conference earlier today in regards to that very matter. It seemed like they were playing damage control because they definitely were reiterating that the influx of unaccompanied minors, unaccompanied children coming in through Texas has to do with what's happening in Central America. You know, this not only crushing poverty, but also an increase in violence, particularly in Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador. And so because of that, because of this violence, is what the administration is saying, that's why these children are coming over. But also at the same time, you're having parents with children coming over. So two things are happening at once. You're also having single mothers who are coming through the border with at least one child. And the mothers that I have been speaking with have told me that there are rumors circulating throughout Latin America, particularly Central America, that if they come through and they give themselves up to U.S. Customs and Border Patrol officials, that they will be given some kind of immigration relief. But of course, they're only getting half the story, and it seems like smugglers are really taking advantage of what's happening right now and those rumors that are circulating throughout.
Oh, okay. So, according to the L.A. Times, these kids are coming here because of all of the violence going on in Central America, and that there's
crushing poverty. Don't forget crushing
poverty, and that there are rumors circulating that they can just come here and give themselves up to our Border Patrol, and we'll give them some sort of immigration relief. Now that is how the left is reporting this. Now,
and they also use the word Honduras.
Honduras, yes.
Like all those posts at Pakistan.
But she didn't pronounce El Salvador correctly.
Exactly.
So, anyway, That's from the left. So now let's take it from the a little further right. And this is a clip from Glenn Beck. It's just a little further right than MSNBC. Not too totally far away. But this is a clip from Glenn Beck, which I find very telling.
Who is causing this? The main explanation trotted out by the administration is the violence in places like Honduras, and that is happening. But that's been going on since the government was overthrown in 2009.
Sounds familiar, though, don't it? Didn't the girl from the L.A. Times just say...
Violence?
Violence? Honduras? Who is causing this, Casey? It's those rumors, right? Where'd they come from? Let's find out.
Buried in one article is this. Administration officials say that, quote, false rumors circulating in their homelands that unaccompanied children can stay indefinitely in the United States are fueling the surge. An illegal immigrant who was interviewed by the local news station in South Texas confirmed this theory. She explained that her TV news in her home nation of Guatemala went on the air claiming that mothers could go to the United States with their child and the president wouldn't turn them away.
The mother has no family in the United States. Her only hope to stay here relies on her little girl. They think America's borders are open to all families. News reports in Guatemala said the mothers and small children are getting bus tickets.
Entonces yo dije, tengo que aprovechar ahora, porque si no, esto se va a acabar y mi niña no va a tener un futuro.
Don't you see what they're doing? Those countries have a vested interest in reducing the population and the poverty. Get the people who are in poverty out of those countries. It helps those remaining, and ship it to the United States. Now, did the news station just invent this rumor on their own? And if not, where'd they dig it up? Who fed it to them? What was it exactly that caused them to go on television and suggest that moms and dads watching that television news station go ahead and risk their lives to flee the country? Did the role of this administration play any role in this nightmare? Any at all? Well, let me go back and take a look at the message they were promoting just before the massive spike in children flooding the border. It was in June of 2012. It was, surprise, surprise, an election year. And the president issued an executive order, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, DACA. It allowed illegal aliens who come here as minors to defer deportation for up to 2 years.
Effective immediately, the Department of Homeland Security is taking steps to lift the shadow of deportation from these young people.
Got it?
Over the next few months, eligible individuals who do not present a risk to national security or public safety will be able to request temporary relief from deportation proceedings and apply for work authorization.
Now, what the president left out of that little speech there was that this only applied to those who were here prior to the year 2007. But that's not all of it. And where did these news agencies in Guatemala and Honduras and El Salvador get this stuff? Why would a news station go on the air and tell these people that they could go to the United States? It would almost appear, and, you know, I don't know this to be a fact, but it would almost appear as if maybe our State Department or our embassies in those countries would send these people these news releases. Because, you know, having worked, you know, for a news outlet, I know that they get news releases and press releases sent to them from, you know, different government agencies. And they don't just go willy-nilly, you know, like the news director in Guatemala City didn't, walk into the office one day and say, this is a slow news day.
Let's tell people they can all go to the United States.
Yeah. I mean, does that make any kind of sense to you? I mean, if it does, let's go back to that real estate deal of the oceanfront property in Arizona that I would like to talk to you about. These news stations are getting this stuff from somewhere.
There's a common thread.
There is a common thread. And
I think you and I saw it pretty well. We were seeing it developing over the weekend.
Yeah.
A common thread. But I think you've got another clip from somebody further to the right.
But just a little bit.
Who starts pulling on that little thread.
Yeah. And, whether you love this guy or hate this guy, I defy you to prove him wrong in many, many instances. A lot of times what this guy says, it makes the left go crazy. Not because he's lying, but because he exposes the truth many, many times.
Over and over and over again throughout his career. And again, whether you like the way he delivers you the bad news or not, denying the truth of what he says is just shooting the messenger.
Yeah. Let's get El Rushbo's take on this, shall we?
Let's do.
The right way to look at this question, I think, is not through the prism of the election coming up in November or this being an election year and the impact this is going to have on Obama's fortunes or even the Democrat fortunes. Now, one thing, in a political sense, you could say, well, maybe this is designed to put pressure on the Republicans to go ahead and pony up on amnesty. Just finally get in gear and do it. And there may be something to that. I don't think so, but others might, and they could be right. If you look at Paul Ryan, he's back on this amnesty kick. I mean, the Republicans in Washington are hell-bent on having amnesty get done prior to the election with them getting credit for it. So if you flood the zone with illegal immigrants, and by the way, the fact that their children's not incidental. If you allow them in, you welcome them in, and you say, oh my goodness, it's so sad, it's so horrible, look at these ragtag children, we're the great United States, we must... You got to let their parents in, don't you? We don't want them to be parentless, we don't want them to be homeless, we've got to find a way to get their parents in. What does anybody think is happening here? This is. Somebody tell me what the benefit is here for whoever, if you can think of one. I'm kind of on the edge here in being point blank, straightforward, full bore honest about this, because I have been for 6.5 years, and it may not be productive. Being full bore honest may not be persuasive. May be so scary to contemplate, so outrageous that people automatically reject it and look for something that's less painful. People just cannot, will not accept that they've elected somebody to be president that doesn't like this country and thinks this country is not worth what everybody else does and doesn't think that what we have become can be justified. So that this country must be made to pay a price. Okay, look at this. Bergdahl. Forget Bergdahl. Forget who Bergdahl is. Forget whatever happened and forget his parents. Just look at the deal. One of our guys, for 5 of some of the most reprobate of them, 5 of some of the greatest threats to this country ever, and we've just let him go, and we just restocked, replenished the enemy. Why? Could it be that there are elements of this regime that don't really think of the Taliban as the enemy, that they are just as justified with their grievances as we might be in ours. Go back and analyze any question or answer that Obama has given when asked about American exceptionalism. What does he say? Paraphrasing, well, I'm sure that they think they're exceptional in Great Britain, too. I believe in American exceptionalism, but I'm sure they think they're exceptional in Guinea-Bissau. I think they think they're exceptional in Sri Lanka. Well, what that means is there's no such thing as American exceptionalism. It's a bunch of people bragging. But hey, they are just as justified in thinking they're decent and they're good and they're exceptional as we are in thinking that.
Now, Russia's given us a lot to think about here. You know, we hear from the L.A. Times, the left, MSNBC. I'm watching Morning Joe this morning, and they've got the congressman that's representing the Chicago area there, you know. And he's big in this amnesty push, right? And he brings out, oh, these are war-torn countries, so much violence, so much poverty. You know, they have no choice but to come here. And we would be horrible human beings if we were to turn them away. We must give these people amnesty, regardless of how they got here, regardless of whether or not they're breaking the law, regardless of whether or not this country can financially afford this huge influx of immigrants. We must do something. And you hear this reporter from the L.A. Times, you know, oh gosh, Casey.
The human crisis. Oh, the humanity.
It's a crisis of humanity. And they're only coming here because of those rumors that are floating around. They don't really know. It's just rumors. And smugglers are taking advantage of them.
Well, of course they are. Because, you know, man, drugs make a lot of money. Drugs make a lot of money. But, you know, one of the most valuable commodities on the planet is people.
But
human trafficking.
But from the report that Beck was giving, it's not so much smugglers that are bringing these people across. Actually, the smugglers are losing out on this because they're coming here on buses. They're getting bused to the border. And they're just walking across. They're just coming here. One after the other, after the other.
Well, see,
we
like
hear
I
about
said,
these flights. They're putting them on planes
Well,
and
see,
flying them to El Paso and Nogales.
like I said, you and I mean, I don't want to take anything away from Rush because he's been putting the pieces together himself on his own.
Mm-hmm.
But all weekend, I kept seeing all this stuff. And yesterday, you know, and I'm thinking, when the president said, when candidate Obama said that he was going to fundamentally transform the United States of America, a lot of us, myself included, didn't take him at his word. That was just bombast. That was just, you know, the usual campaign, politi-speech, the usual campaign rhetoric. You know, everybody says they're going to, but see, everybody says they're going to change America for the better. Obama never said that.
No.
He said he was going to fundamentally transform America.
He has.
He is making sure, you know, like because he always likes to make sure, you know.
Let me be clear.
That that this nation is transformed into a third world country.
Well, I mean, look.
And to him and his wife, we deserve it.
Yeah.
Because we've been such bad citizens of the world. So arrogant. Because we elected George Bush.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know.
We're a nation of racists, after all.
Yes. And we've got income inequality.
Mm-hmm. So what he's decided to do I mean, it's almost as if, all right, he calls us a nation of racists. His wife says the only time she's ever been proud of the United States of America is when they elected her husband. Now, somehow or another, a nation of racists elected a black man as president. It's if those two things have just do not contradict each other at all.
Right.
So what better way to stick it to a racist country than to flood it with yet another minority altogether?
And I tell you what,
And
take the you can. I tell you what, you can take the whole minority situation out. Forget about flooding the country with immigrants. Let's just talk about, instead of immigrants, let's just say financial burden.
Mm-hmm. We'll do away with that income inequality thing.
Yeah, let's just talk about completely trashing the economy. And it's going to be blamed on capitalism.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In spite of the fact that we haven't had free market capitalism in this country since Woodrow Wilson.
Well.
Okay. As a matter of fact, the moment that the income tax was instituted in this country, free market capitalism went bye-bye. Okay. So it's kind of hard to see, unless you're a progressive or a liberal,
Mm-hmm.
how capitalism can have brought us to this past when, or at least free market capitalism. I mean, especially since Obama was elected, we've experienced lots of crony capitalism. Hello, Solyndra.
More than any president in our history.
I'm talking like, Tammany Hall. Remember when we had to study that in school? Of course, I know there's some kids out there. Anybody that's probably under 30 listening to this show was not even going to know what I'm talking about. But not since Tammany Hall have we seen the level of cronyism in this country. I'm talking to you, General Electric. I'm talking to you, General Motors.
Well.
Okay. So what Rush was getting at, and it's strange. Usually Rush just spits it out there, calls it like he sees it. But I actually sense some hesitation on his part. Even he doesn't really want to just come right out and say that the president is trying to wreck this country.
He is on a mission to completely
because you tied that up.
Down.
And I told people we were going to tie this up. This wasn't a prisoner. Bergdahl wasn't a prisoner swap.
Nope.
Getting Bergdahl back was just gravy. Because they were going to release these 5 from Gitmo. The president is determined to empty Gitmo, whether he can actually,
legally or not.
He knows that Congress isn't going to just say, well, let's just close it. This is his way of just going ahead and trying to empty it. And the people who will be left in there, well, they won't be worth anything anyway to anybody.
Yeah.
Okay. Because
we've already gotten rid of the worst of the worst.
Exactly. So, when you sit and think, if you sat down and thought, how can I absolutely wreck this country? First thing you do is just completely trash the economy. Put so many burdensome regulations through the back door as you possibly can. The way Eric Holder's been doing it with the Justice Department's Environmental Division by sneaking lawsuits through. Boy, don't even get me started on that. I'll stop there.
You can attack something like 1/6 of the nation's economy, like
the healthcare system.
Just demolish their healthcare system. 1/6 of the economy.
Then you dump millions of they're not even political refugees. These are economic refugees.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Dump a few million economic refugees into the
It's not like
into
we're
the system.
And look, make no mistake, we're not anti-immigrant by any stretch of the imagination. We are a nation of immigrants. But what Casey's talking about here, these economic refugees, these aren't skilled laborers that are coming here.
These are not people who can support themselves. I mean,
they couldn't even support themselves in their own countries.
Well, some of these single moms might be able to work. Other single moms throughout history have been able to do it, but they had jobs that they could work. But with the economy already being in the state that it's in, where there's so many people out looking for work and can't find it,
Our own citizens.
Yes. So,
legal citizens can't find work.
So you flood the country, and then what else? What else will help bring down the country? Let's put some of the country's worst enemies back out into a position to do physical, violent harm to the country and its soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guard who are overseas fighting on behalf of the country.
Now,
so
look, man,
is this a recipe? This is like the most evil witch's brew recipe that you can come up with.
It's
Have
like
I left
something right out of the Manchurian Candidate, man. I mean, it sounds so crazy. It sounds like this stuff, like, you know, it's something that a writer would even be hesitant to put in a book, because it almost seems so absurd that it wouldn't even be believable fiction.
And
but
I know
the saddest part of it all is every bit of it has already come to pass.
Now, are you pretty far down? Are you pretty low?
I'm getting there. I'm getting
Well,
there.
I'm going to take you down a step lower. We didn't get to talk about this before the show. But talk about stuff you wouldn't put in a book. If you had told Adolf Hitler, when he invaded the Rhineland, remember that? I mean, we weren't alive, but
yeah,
this was before he went into Poland or anything. He even said later, if even a couple of cops had tried to stop him from going into the Rhineland, all of his ambitions of conquest would have had to come to a screeching halt.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of Rhineland, let's talk about Crimea.
Okay.
In 1938, or in the early 30s, Great Britain had Neville Chamberlain.
Right.
Narcissist.
Peace in our time.
He was narcissistic.
Yeah.
Liked attention.
Yeah.
Thought very highly of himself.
Mm-hmm.
Went to go grab that peace in our time so that he could have a legacy.
Right.
Look who we got.
Neville Obama.
Mm-hmm. Obama Chamberlain.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Vladimir Putin, who, okay, if everybody else is scared to compare him with Hitler, I'll do it. The Crimea is his Rhineland.
Wanting to take back all of the land that once belonged to Mother Russia.
Extreme nationalistic pride.
Mm-hmm.
Scapegoating the Jews.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, folks, we're not. I mean, I know all this stuff that we're saying just sounds outlandish, but man, go read your history books. What are we being set
go
up?
read your newspaper.
What are we being set up for here? You read our history book, and it looks like reading the history book sounds like reading the freaking newspaper today.
Yep.
The world is in the same condition that it was in prior to World War II.
And look,
desperation around the world is at an all-time high, just like it was in World War II. Remember how Japan, they were growing so fast and they were actually desperate for oil and things, you know, to boost their economy? Yeah. Well, Japan's okay right now, but further east over there, you got the Chinese who, I think they're just desperate for some pride.
Yeah. And they're running out of resources too. And they're desperate.
And you've got Central America now that is desperate because they can't seem to govern themselves. They can't seem to establish lawful government.
And they're resource rich.
Yeah. I mean, like really, really, look, man, Central America has got all kinds of stuff there that the rest of the world wants.
There's tons and tons of minerals.
There's also, you know, arguably the pharmaceutical industry could be interested in plundering Central America because, you know, a lot of our medicines end up coming from rainforests. What do they got a lot of in Central America?
Some of the best land prime for agriculture.
Some of the best coffee
on the planet.
Let's face it, man, some of the best coffee in the world.
In other words, we could be accused, well, we are accused of, you know, being nutbag conspiracy theorists. And, you know, we make a lot of this stuff up. But the fact of the business is, one only has to pick up a newspaper and a history book, hold them side by side,
and see if you can tell one from the other.
The same things are happening just like they did pre-World War II. And here we are. You know, it's like I used to tell my kids. Don't think of us as parents. Think of us as a couple of people that have a crystal ball here. Everything that you're thinking about doing, we thought about doing, and we did. And we know how it turned out. I look at what you're planning on doing here, and I can tell you that this is how it's going to turn out. I'm standing in front of you, waving my hands, going, warning, warning, warning. If you do this, then this is going to be the result. All right, here are Casey and I right now, with a history book in one hand and a newspaper in the other, and we're jumping up and down in front of you guys, and we're screaming, warning, warning, warning.
We're not alone. Rush Limbaugh, standing over there going, warning, warning, warning. Bill Whittle and the folks at PJ Media are screaming at the top of their lungs.
Glenn
Powerline.
Laura Ingraham. Matt Drudge. Well, used to be Andrew Breitbart, may he rest in peace. But there's tons of people jumping up and down and waving their arms at America, our fellow citizens, and we're saying, guys, please, for the love of God, pay attention. History repeats itself. And this is one point of history. World War II.
I didn't want a repeat of that.
No, we don't.
And the thing is, and I think this is going to kind of help because we're getting close to the end of our rainbow here.
We still got a couple of more pieces of audio left to go.
Well, maybe we'd better just get into those pieces of audio.
Well, it all stems to this. We can let things keep going like they are. And we know what the result will be. Just like they did pre-World War II, they let things keep going. They had their Neville Chamberlain.
And then they had Winston Churchill going, whoa, put the brakes on it, hey, hey, hey. And nobody listened to Winston Churchill prior to 1938.
But Winston Churchill helped get them, he helped get them back on the right track. It was Winston Churchill's bravery and his country standing and fighting and not giving in. Imagine how things would have turned out, Casey, had Winston Churchill not rallied the British people.
It's too ugly to contemplate, man. I mean, really.
Because there wasn't a whole lot of space between France and England was there.
No, little fishing boats make it across that little spit of water, man.
Now, we've got an election just around the corner, man. Now, I'm not talking midterms, although these midterms are arguably, for this country,
they're critical.
When we're talking about control, they're critical. But we got a presidential one coming up in, 2016.
Just a couple years.
All right? Now, there is a candidate very much like the one that we've got in office right now.
Mm-hmm.
Her name is Hillary. And she really, really wants to be in the driver's seat. I don't care what she says about she doesn't know if she's going to run or not. Give me a break.
Yeah. And another thing that Hillary really, really, really wants is for all of us to develop a collective amnesia.
And not remember history.
Exactly. The last 5 years, we should forget all about that.
Oh, yeah.
Her time in the Senate, forget about it.
And really, she was never at the State Department.
No.
She wasn't. She was never there. And you want to talk about somebody wanting to rewrite history? Remember we had little Miss Harf?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we can just recreate history about Bin Laden.
But see, Marie Harf is young. Where do you think she learned it? She had a great example.
You want to hear somebody recreate history? I've got a clip here. Just last night. Good old Hillary. She did Diane Sawyer's show. Diane Sawyer has a diary in her hand of Ambassador Chris Stevens. And you've got to hear this with your own ears. In case, you've missed this throughout the day, you've got to hear this interview. This is just a clip.
His last words in his diary, Chris Stevens, never-ending security threats.
Right.
But he was there on 9/11.
Right. And of his own choosing. But
did you hear that?
Mm-hmm.
Did you hear that? Hillary Clinton says that Chris Stevens was in Benghazi of his own choosing.
Because there was no pressure.
Didn't we just have some testimony not too long ago from the all favored accountability review board?
That famous accountability review board
by a man named Gregory Hicks,
mm-hmm.
who testified that Chris Stevens was in Benghazi at the behest of who, Casey?
Hillary Clinton.
The State Department.
Because there was enormous pressure on him. He had a narrow window of time to get in there and get a consulate opened.
Talk about rewriting history. She
Uh-huh.
really thinks that we've already forgotten about the testimony of the people who were actually there. She really, really hopes that we will forget about those people. But anyway, there's more.
You wanted a post there.
it was important to have diplomatic assets. Were there security threats? Yes. And there's a long list of countries where there are security threats to American interests.
But these were the highest, among the highest.
No, well,
security threats,
it would be in the top 25. It was not.
Not in the top 5, top 10?
Maybe in the top upper 10. But there were places where we had much more concern.
But should she have known the situation in Benghazi was deteriorating fast? A cable in August, a month before the attack, warns about vulnerability. There had been 2 bomb attacks on the mission in the last 6 months. The Red Cross had pulled out of Benghazi. The British had left too.
You know, the criticism is it was a glaring, flashing red crisis there. The British were pulling out. There had already been attacks. There were cables being sent. Did you miss it? Did you miss the moment to prevent this from happening?
No, but I think as the independent board that investigated every aspect of this, including all the cables, concluded,
there was a lack of appreciation and response to the level of threat. Now, there were a lot of...
By you, too?
Well, no, that was never brought to me.
All right. There's like 2 more minutes of this, and I'm not going to play it. I'm just going to, by all means, please look this up. Google it, Diane Sawyer, Hillary Clinton, Benghazi. Just Google it. And watch this video in its entirety. Diane Sawyer gives Hillary Clinton several chances to own up to even just an inkling of responsibility about what happened in Benghazi. She won't give an inch. She says, was there ever a moment where you look back and say, if I had only, if I had just, if I could just go back in time, I would. And Hillary says, no. She doesn't even want to admit that Benghazi or that Libya was in the top 5 hot spots in the world right then for our embassies.
And Diane Sawyer actually got one thing wrong. She said the British were pulling out of Benghazi. No,
they were
gone. The British were gone.
The Red Cross was gone.
I mean, and Hillary said, oh, she had no idea. Okay,
please.
Either you're too ignorant to be doing your job, if you're ignorant, or you're just lying through your teeth, lady.
And you want us to elect you as President of the United States.
If you can't even go back and look at that and go, you know what, I'd do some stuff different.
She won't even admit to knowing about any of these cables that were sent.
We've already got a president who doesn't apologize. We've already got a president that's detached from doing his job.
And it says, I never saw this. I never heard that.
Yeah. We've already got one of those, and it's not working out too well for the country, Hillary. So, you know.
People, how bad do you want to repeat history? You want Benghazi on a national scale? You remember that commercial she did about the 3 a.m. phone call?
Mm-hmm.
Well, she's already had one, folks. You see how she responded? Is there even an inkling of remorse in this woman? No, because she did nothing wrong. This is right up there with her husband's. I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
So,
but that leads me to one more clip. And this is Marco Rubio. And this is how he sees this whole Hillary and Benghazi thing. And you know how Casey and I feel about Rubio. He's not one of our favorites. But
he makes one of the most incredibly damning statements about Hillary Clinton in this clip.
Yeah. Listen for yourself.
I want to turn now to the Benghazi story. In an interview last night, Hillary Clinton said she does not appreciate the politicizing of the Benghazi attacks. And when asked if it's one more reason for her not to run, here's what she said.
Not another reason not to run. No, actually, just too much. Actually, it's more of a reason to run because I do not believe our great country should be playing minor league ball. We ought to be in the majors. And I view this as really, apart from even a diversion from the hard work that the Congress should be doing about the problems facing our country and the world.
Senator, is this minor league ball?
I don't think the issue of Benghazi is minor league ball. It is for Americans have lost their lives serving our country. We need to investigate it to understand what went wrong so that the people responsible for those decisions can be held accountable and so that we can put in place measures so that it never happens again. That to me is a very valid inquiry. The State Department had at its disposal a steady stream of reporting about how dangerous and how much danger that facility in Benghazi was in. It is a that they did not take sufficient security measures, and it is a fact that perhaps they shouldn't have even been there, and it is a fact that they did not have an extraction plan in place that was sufficient. Who made that decision, and is that method of operating still in place now? Because Americans serving in Tripoli today in Libya are in similar danger. And I think those are legitimate inquiries, and if she thinks that's not something we should focus on, then perhaps that gives you some insight as to why this happened in the first place.
Well, she has apologized because she said it happened on her watch. I mean, do you hold her personally responsible for the security failure that you cite?
Ultimately, this was a systemic breakdown of the State Department's security apparatus, and she ran the State Department. She should have known of the dangers that existed there. In fact, in a hearing we had here a year and a half ago, I asked her specifically about meetings she had with the Libyan government, in which she was made aware of the fact that many of these militias that were providing some of the perimeter security were unreliable, and how dangerous Benghazi had become. The Brits had pulled out of Benghazi, the Red Cross had pulled out of Benghazi, the U.S. facility had already been previously targeted. So not only has she not been held responsible, no one has been held responsible. I believe 4 individuals were suspended with pay. All 4 have returned to work. Who made this decision not to have sufficient security? And are those types of decisions still being made? Those are valid inquiries, and she has to have some level of responsibility, because if she's going to brag about her time at the State Department, she also has to talk openly about their failures.
Senator Rubio, thank you.
All right, people. Comes down to this. In 2012, Casey and I stood before you with 4 years of evidence about Barack Obama and his presidency. We asked that question, the same question Ronald Reagan asked in 1980. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? People of this country answered that question honestly to themselves. They elected Ronald Reagan in a landslide. All right. 2012, Casey and I stood before you and we said, are we better off now than we were 4 years ago? And at that time, we had tons and tons of evidence that we brought to the people of this country. And we were begging and pleading, please, people, see this for what it is. Don't let history repeat itself. As we speak right now, not only is history repeating itself, but it's getting worse and worse and worse. Now, so far, the only other candidate on the party of the president that's talking about throwing their hat in the ring is Joe Biden.
I don't even know what to say to that.
Yeah, there's nothing we can say there. I kind of hope it just comes down to old Joe, to be honest with you, because I really don't think the country's that stupid. But there's a huge portion of this country that thinks Hillary Clinton is the answer to all of our problems. Not only is she of the same ilk as Barack Obama,
she's worse.
She is so much worse. Look at what happened in Benghazi. She was so detached from not just reality in general, but she was so detached from that one part of the world, that one thing, that one place, that she completely dropped the ball, and it cost the lives of 4 Americans. Now, if you scale that up, she was talking on her book tour about how broke her and her husband was when they left the White House.
Yeah, they really...
With an $8 million book deal.
Mm-hmm.
She has no idea what it is like to live as the average American. No idea, no clue. They made so much fun of Mitt Romney because of how wealthy he was. And how he just didn't have a clue what it would be like to live as an average American. When Hillary Clinton has had a Secret Service detail since 1992, Case.
She hasn't driven a car
since
1992.
She's had drivers to take her everywhere she needed to go. She's had she is surrounded by advisors and people to tell her what they want her to know about how things really are. You want to talk about detached. Do you think Obama is detached from reality? This woman hasn't lived in the private life since the 90s.
When do you think the last time was she went and bought her own darn groceries, man?
So here we are. We're standing before you. We're waving our arms and we're screaming, warning, warning, warning. Don't let history repeat itself. Now, we were let down in 2012.
Because there's how many, about 8 million
So
Republicans? 7 million?
7 million registered Republicans.
Sat home.
They didn't want to vote.
Because they didn't like Romney.
Guys, I'm telling you now, this country will not survive 4 more years of Democrat governance. Or 4 more years of progressive governance. The progress is over a cliff. You know who I feel like, Casey? And look, I'm nowhere near as great a man as either of these. But I'm starting to feel like the prophet Isaiah or the prophet Jeremiah, prophet Amos. You know how they stood before the Israelites and they screamed and they begged and they pleaded, guys,
turn it around.
The writing is on the wall. We've got to turn around. We've got to turn from our ways. If we do not, we're going to be destroyed. God will bring his judgment down upon us. You know, Israel didn't always have a king back in the day. The Israelites kept begging and begging and begging. We need a king. We need a king. We need a king. It angered God.
But he let them have a king.
He said, okay, you're asking for it, so I'm going to let you have it. Here we are as a nation right now, practically screaming, we need a king, we need a king, we need a king. God is about to give us just what we're asking for, people. And it ain't good.
You want to be able to abort babies just whenever you feel like it. You know, you want to be able to do just anything you want to.
You want to marry a goat?
Without consequences.
You want to call good bad, bad good?
You know, you want to be a feminist and show how empowered you are by going topless, knowing that men go down to certain bars and pay money for women to take their tops off so they can objectify them. But you want to be a feminist and empower yourself by taking on sorry, Marty just distracted me. Eric Cantor just lost his primary. Oh, that's huge.
To a Tea Party candidate.
A Tea Party candidate. Oh, that's huge. That's breaking news right there, folks. Wow. That sort of derailed my thought. But
you know what that shows me, Casey?
It shows me everybody ain't asleep.
It shows me that there are people in this country who are paying attention to those of us jumping up and down, waving our hands, saying the status quo cannot continue.
But the status quo is powerful. And you know, I just finished up studying the book of Jeremiah. I just finished a little study course.
Yeah.
On Jeremiah. And things weren't so good for old Jeremiah.
No. He took a beating for
God had him telling people, screaming at them to turn around. And he went back to God and he said, hey, man, look, nobody's listening to me anyway. And I've lost all my friends and all this. And God essentially told him, you think it's bad now. Brace yourself, Jeremiah. It's going to get worse. And it did. I mean, the thing is, all those things that Jeremiah prophesied, every one of them came true. Every single one of them.
But they didn't have to, Casey.
And see, the thing is the book of Jeremiah closes out, well, it doesn't quite close out, but towards the end of it, there's the hope. God lets him prophesy about Israel becoming great again.
Yeah.
Which it did.
Yeah.
You know, he said, look, 70 years you're going to be, Nebuchadnezzar's foot, the foot of Babylon, in other words, is going to be on your neck. After 70 years, I'm going to ease up and I'm going to cause Babylon to fall, and Hebrew people can come back to Israel and Judah. Well, everything that Jeremiah prophesied came true. Now, the thing is, all throughout, from the beginning until nearly the end, God had said, you can turn around. Now, see, I think, and I think you agree with me, that if Israel had turned around, that those prophecies of what would happen if they turned around would have also come true.
Yep.
That God would have relented and turned things around for them. Now, I see that you've got your Bible open.
I do.
And I believe you have something to say.
It's another prophecy of hope. If my people, who are called by my name, will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven. I will forgive their sins, and I will heal their land.
Amen.
Let's make the turn, people. Please, let's make the turn.
The stakes are too high not to, folks.
Let's just humble ourselves and seek God's face and pray.
And let's make no mistake, this ain't me and Marty saying that. That's straight out of the Bible. We ain't the prophets.
No, we're not worthy enough to be the prophets, but we are students of history. And we are God's people. We'll see you guys on Thursday.
Good night, y'all.